Hello, Lockdown Diaries, day 51. Again, sorry for the break. I just seemed to be completely distracted by trying to get up and get things up and running for spring. Also, today I was supposed to be doing a video on the delivery of the new Honda CB500X that I'm adding to the fleet, but that's been postponed the delivery till next week, so I shall do that next week. In the meantime, I kind of feel it's been useful to do the talk through of the maps and some of the routes I've used, whether it be in England or America. And I thought I'd do the same to the Bulgaria or bust trip that I did 2019 with a group. And it was in essence uh, land freighting the bikes out to Sofia in Bulgaria, and then spending 2 weeks riding back. The reason for doing that was simply to acknowledge that for a lot of people 2 weeks is the maximum they can get, and B, that to try and ride out to Bulgaria and ride back again in 2 weeks would mean a lot of heavy motorway work and a lot of long days in the saddle to make it happen. And I just didn't feel that that was the best way of doing it. And I guess I've always enjoyed riding towards home. It always has a nice pull to it. So the idea was to ship the bikes out using a company called Bulgaria Bike Shipping, which is run and owned by a friend called David Hides, and he essentially runs enduro tours out in Bulgaria. He has bikes out there, but you can also send your own enduro bikes out there. He'll do a tour with you, and then the bikes come back, and he sends them on a lorry, really, a lorry with sort of stillages for the bikes, so the bikes are securely sent. And this was the first time he'd sent adventure bikes. So he sent, I was on the Himalayan, I had CB500X, Africa Twin, GS 1250, KTM 790. Yeah, same old mix as I usually get, really. And the idea, as I say, send it into Sofia, Bulgaria, and then gently ride back using only scenic roads, really. It was the first time I'd done this trip. I'd not had a chance to recce it, so they were going in as blind as I guess I was. The notion was to do it as sort of semi-organized as the America trip, where there was flexibility in the schedule to make it your own run. I think it had mixed success in that regards, but it's very difficult because you soon realise with a group that some people want to do one thing and some want to do something else. And I guess the flexibility of the system means that you can do that, but it meant that we didn't see some of the riders for days on end. But I think it was a good trip. I think I mark it down as a success, and we certainly had some good riding. Fine tune it, yes, but certainly some good riding. So this is a route that I'm just going to share in case it's of any use to anyone else planning a Balkan ride or any heading out in that direction. I mean, the beauty of sending the bike out, you've effectively saved yourself sort of 1,500, 1,800 miles of riding to get out to Bulgaria. And if you really wanted, you could go off east and very easily straight into Turkey and explore Turkey, or down into Greece. Another option would be to come across into Italy at some point. So really, once you're down in Bulgaria, you've got such a great playground to explore and to roam. Price for the shipping was about £900 per bike, £800 per bike, and then you fly at 150. So it's not cheap, and it would be possibly cheaper to ride down. Well, it would be cheaper to ride down. And one of the riders actually did ride down and did it in 2 days, coming down Italy and across. So certainly possible. It's just the way I wanted to play this. I wanted everyone to arrive in Sofia uh, after their bikes had arrived fresh and ready for the ride back. So I just wanted to go through the routes. If I drop into here, so this is the initial, I guess, I think it was a week. My memories are a bit vague, whether it's on place names or exact routes or whatever. So don't take this as gospel. This is just an overview based on memory. 7:54 on a Wednesday night. So if I miss anything or get it wrong, don't blame me. So we flew into Sofia, just there, and part of the package was having airport transfer, and they transferred us down here to Samakov, and that's where the bikes are offloaded, and you pick them up in quite a decrepit back street place, but the bikes were there and fine. So yeah, it is what it is. Sofia we didn't really stay in, so I guess you could add that. But it was very clear that once you leave Sofia, it's very rural all the way through Bulgaria. I think that was the first thing we realised with Bulgaria. It is very open, vast, and sparsely populated with lots of old towns, villages with not a lot of life in them. Not a lot of spoken English, so you've got to be prepared for that. The road surface has varied from good to very bad, and that's what put some other riders off a little bit in the early days because the road quality was really poor in places. And so I think some prefer to stick to the main roads, whereas others obviously were had preference to go on the bumpy, bodgy back roads. So we stayed in the ski resort of Borovets, which very pleasant, nice. Obviously, a summer season you get some cheap hotels, and there's some nice hotels there, nice restaurants and things. And it's all very pretty, very picturesque around there, as you would imagine, with it being a ski area. And then I picked out this route where we went east because the idea was to go to the UFO monument, which you might have seen from other travellers, called Budludze, which is the old communist. It was like a function centre built in 80s and 90s, and it only stayed in existence for about 10 years before it was abandoned, and then it stands up on the hill slowly decaying. And there are plans to regenerate it and save it because it is a unique structure, but so far it stands decrepit, which is a real shame. So to get there, it meant us going east. And again, I just spent a lot of time on Google mapping, dropping pins, and I found this road that ran east, the BO2, no, the 803, I think that is. And we just took that, and that was a very narrow, overgrown 2-lane road running through very quiet, humdrum little villages and over a dramatic dam, all very isolated, nothing out there. But it was a great start to the trip because it meant very little traffic. And then once we jumped on the main road running east, it picked up a little bit of traffic. I think the thing we did find actually was finding places to eat. We were travelling on a Sunday that day, and just finding a cafe or anything that was open was incredibly difficult, and it's one thing to bear in mind that sometimes through rural parts of the Balkans you're not easily going to stumble across a cafe. I think there are places, they're just in the back streets and not on the main road. We did eventually find somewhere which was a worthwhile stop, and got some ancient ruins somewhere on that route. I've got to be honest, I haven't a clue where. I just saw it as we came through it. I think it might be there. Banya. Could be. Could be anywhere, to be honest. And kind of, as anybody guessed, sometimes with these trips you're kind of winging it because I think sometimes you've just got to. And then we turned off, and Budludze is there, so out in the east, and well worth riding out to. It's a very rotten, dirty track to get up to it, broken roads, but the view from the top, well worth it, and the building itself is certainly unique. And then a great ride down the mountain on this side. We stayed at Motor Camp Bulgaria, which is quite a well-known motorcycle camping place with sort of lodging accommodation as well, owned by Polly and Round the World Doug, who rides around the world on a Harley, and I think it's his part venture. So he's not there often, but it's a great facility for bikers. It's a bit of an expat enclave there. Lots of British live out there. There's quite a lot of Brits, to be honest, buying properties in these rural parts just because they get so much for the money. Seems a bit lonely out there, but people like Graham Fields, the author of The Greener Grass, In Search of Greener Grass, love it out there. So it's certainly got its charm. So some great riding through there. As you can see, the twisty roads. Anything that's got a twisty road running through it, that's the one I head for. We did hit this main road running west just to make some ground up the next day. And yeah, not very pleasant. Bulgarian roads, lorries driving slightly erratic, cars driving fast, and there's some nasty, obnoxious black smoke coming out of a lot of cars, which make it very difficult to sit behind them. And some of the drivers are quite aggressive, so I think you've got to be quite a defensive rider in those parts. Certainly on the mountain climbs, to be honest, some of the driving was obscene. So yeah, you do have to be slightly guarded in how you ride. But this pass here, fantastic. This was thanks to Duncan, who was on the trip, who spotted this one. And it's called the Trojan Pass. And I mean, as you can see, endlessly twisty. Not bad surface at all. And then you get to the monument at the top, and you've got this incredible vista from around, and you can actually see Budluds are just off in the distance. So you're at the summit there, and you look east, and you can just see Budluds are in the distance, in the faint distance. So two real relics of communist Soviet architecture there. And then we dropped down main road, still quiet, but as you get towards Sofia, certainly picked up. We did some dirt road through there. That was unpaid, but perfectly manageable. And then, yeah, this bit, as you get closer to Sofia, the capital, just a bit truck infested, a bit smoky, a bit dirty. And then we ended up at a place called Belogradzic, which is an old ancient rock fortress built into the landscape. Incredible building and town in which it's set, or the town has been built around the actual ruins. And again, I just found this place by Googling. Lots of Googling, best places to see in Bulgaria. And then you're obviously marking them on the map. What makes sense? What can you do? What can't you do? What's easy to achieve? And I just booked as an Airbnb near to there, and yeah, it was again difficult to get food actually on an evening. It was surprising to find no restaurants open or anything like that, even takeaways. So we did struggle a bit through Bulgaria, but an incredible monument, and well worth going if you get to that part. And then we wanted to cross into Serbia. The suggestion was to aim for the main border, where you would be able to get a green card. Now there is a lot of grey area with the green card. It is, Serbia, it should be included in your green card, which comes with EU membership, I guess. But some insurance companies made exceptions to it in their clauses. They said, we do not cover Serbia, Montenegro, some didn't cover Bosnia. So really, it's a question of checking your insurance and what it covers and what it doesn't cover. And so there were some of us who didn't have Serbia on our insurance. So we had to get it at the border, and therefore you need to cross on a main border in order to get it. So we took this beautiful road that ran down here, and then eventually joined the slog into the border area, where there is a lot of queues. And in fairness, they do allow bikes to filter to the front, and they don't seem to get too upset about it. And in the end, it cost us an unsavoury amount of €115 to get into Serbia on the green card, which stung quite significantly, certainly as we were only going to be there a day. Some of the riders decided not to bother and sort of winged it, which I completely understood, but obviously as a guide I kind of had to set the right example by getting it, and a few others did, but yeah, some didn't. And it's a shame that there's not more uniformity to the green card with the insurance companies. And certainly if you're looking at taking out a new insurance and you're planning on going out to these parts, then check what they cover before you do. And it's not even down to the company, it's down to the actual underwriter they use. So depending on your circumstances, an insurer might use one broker for you or an underwriter for you, but then with different circumstances, they might use a different underwriter. So, and then they might not cover places like Serbia. So you've really got to tap into your insurance company before, ask which underwriter would be applicable to your policy and what that underwriter covers. I can't remember the terminology, which exact companies did what, but speak to your insurance company. There are ADAC in Germany does a blanket policy on the area, but you're going to be paying for that. One of the riders did have that, and so there are options. Serbia, we would have liked a bit more time in Serbia, but even with 2 weeks, you're still pushing on. You're still doing your 200 miles a day, and that means missing something. Ideally, we would have gone into Kosovo, but it just didn't fit into the sort of the roadmap that as I got it. Just in terms of Kosovo isn't recognised by Serbia as an autonomous country or nation in its own right. So you're able to travel from Serbia into Kosovo, but if you try and cross from Kosovo into Serbia, then you're going to have problems, and I don't believe they let you in. So there's still a lot of geopolitics going on in that region that you have to be aware of, or else you're going to get stung at a border or into a bit of trouble. Serbia, actually, I've got to say, had some stunning riding. We headed for Nis, which was a nice town / city. This was all the way out through Serbia. Somebody's had some EU money, because there's a brand spanking new super duper dual carriageway, high-rise dual carriageway running through the mountains there, and it goes on for the first sort of 40 miles, and then it suddenly spits you off into the the valley roads, where obviously either they run out of money or the grant for that section of road ended. So you gone bombing in and then suddenly come to a slow crawl through the rest of it. But yeah, Niz was nice. And then in fairness, all this riding, really empty, flowing, good surface road, but just sublime riding, I have to say. It was just enjoyable, good riding all the way through there. And people took slightly different roads. Again, if you put it into your sat nav, it's going to take you a different road. This is the route I sort of marked off because it looked to be the most interesting route. And when I'd done my research, there was a bit of a miscalculation on that day, and actually we ended up with about a 350-mile day that day, which was an error of planning on my part. I'd booked us into a hostel here on Lake Uvak, which is very spectacular, like a really deserted lake and river section, a bit like Lake Powell in America, but not as big. And I'd made a mistake in my calculations. Yep, unfortunate, and it meant a very long day. And as we came close, a lot of this road was being dug up and renovated, and it meant we were riding it sort of into dusk and had to push on. We went through, through here, went through Novi Pazar, which is it's almost had a Middle Eastern Asian feel to it, just with its hustle and bustle. It's sort of, bizarre, like a bazaar. It felt like a bazaar town with markets and things. It was interesting through there. And then as we came here, it was all dirt road, and then finding the actual hotel B&B was at the end of the longest dirt road, which almost felt like it was taking you into a field. And many riders got there at 10 at night, and it was dark. But I have to say, the sense of achievement and the sense of satisfaction of an adventure had by doing that distance on those conditions, I think people said this feels like a real adventure. And by adventure, it was obviously difficult and I guess dangerous to an extent, riding at night. Never advised, certainly on roads you don't know, and certainly unmade. But I think that was the most satisfactory, joyful, memorable ride of the trip, because we set ourselves a challenge to do it. When we were in Sata eating pizza at lunchtime or late lunch in Niz, we said we'll never do it, and some actually stayed in Niz that night rather than riding on. But it was just like, right, now we've got to do it. We're going to get on our bikes and we're going to ride, and it was nice to have that focus, really. And then the most important country that I wanted to see and that everyone advised was Montenegro, and I've got to say, what a spectacular riding country it is. Absolutely incredible views and roads, scenery, everything. It had everything going for it, Montenegro. And I would say if you're heading for anywhere in that region, Montenegro is a great place to start. I've not been everywhere in the Balkans, but Montenegro really was spectacular. Riding along the P10, I mean, it's just endless. I actually don't know I think I might have got that mark wrong there. I think we actually took this. We went down here and then on the P4. We did have a job in Montenegro actually getting the insurance. Again, it is a frustration, that green card insurance. And Montenegro, everyone or no one had it on their green card, Montenegro, so we all needed insurance. And we just rode into the first town, and it was difficult. There was nobody at the border to offer the insurance, and it was only once we parked up in the town, and I sort of just was an underestimation of how easy it was going to be, really. And finally found a company that would issue the insurance, and we all rushed down there. Got our insurance, I think for 12 euros, and on we went, really. And we just had the most incredible riding along here, and then we stayed that night in Zablak. It's a campsite, a lot of skiing around there, so mountainous, and then took the P14 across here. Wow, that is a great road. Not fast, not aggressive, not to be ridden hard, but just as a way of crossing remote terrain. It was as good a riding, as good a road as I've ever done, and it eventually spits you out at probably the most spectacular sight you'll ever see as well. Pluzi, which is a very small sort of town, I guess, village on the shore of Piva Lake. Turquoise blue lake, and you come down and you get to about the top of there and you look down and you go, wow, that is the most incredible sight I've ever seen. and then you ride through this tunnel network here, which is all sort of almost looks like it's been dug by hand, almost like a mole hole as it comes down through the rocks. And then you come out of this bridge, and it's absolutely incredible. It really is. You could have a good holiday there, never get bored. And then we dropped down. Some of us did a back road, which was a bit monotonous. I've got to be honest. I think it ran here or somewhere. Oh, who knows really? As I say, it's what with lockdown and COVID, everything pre-COVID has faded into sort of a faint glimmer of memory. I think actually I don't know, we went down here anyway, and come down here and down eventually to. If you come down here, just zoom out a bit into Kota. Ah, what a place Kota is! It's an old medieval coastal harbour town, fortress walls. So everything exists, or the old town exists within the walls of the fortress, which are built right up against the rock. And then looking out above it, you've got Lovchen National Park, which takes a circular road all the way around to the top. And then you've got again such incredible views from the top of there. And that's all been recently resurfaced. All this area here has. That's what we came down on the P23, which was incredibly remote and a bit slow going. So I'd recommend the P15. But yeah, Kota was a great place to stay. It had a great charm on an evening. It is getting busier, it is getting more known, so there is more tourism there, but still very much worth going to. And then Lovchen offered views yeah, incredible views and just a great atmosphere. And then equally around here, you've got endless amounts of little beaches where you can pull over and swim all the way along here. As the road just traces the edge of the water and then comes up. And yes, I fell in love with Montenegro, and I think most people who on the trip also fell in love with Montenegro. There are bike hire companies there, I believe, so that could be an option if you don't want the hassle of taking your own. And then we look at Croatia. Now, obviously, we could go Dubrovnik and then all the way up to Split, etc., along the coast, which could be a good option, but my feeling was it was going to be very busy along there, and a bit, Dubrovnik's very touristy, and Split is very touristy, and I thought, well, let's look at what else there is. So we headed into Bosnia. We crossed the border, so we took a mountain road up here. We eventually come to the border here, where we got a green card again for Bosnia. So there's a lot of hassle really with traveling the Balkans, or there can be a lot of hassle if you're having to get green cards. It's got that sense of frontier riding where you're crossing different countries and dealing with the bureaucracy without being that far from home. So if you want to experience what it's like on a round the world trip, go to the Balkans, because it's got the same amount of paperwork effort, slightly cheaper than Carnes, but certainly still with effort. Bosnia, I think, was €27 to get in and for the green card. So all in all, we spent about $150 on green cards. Some of us, those who had to get it. I can't remember if some had Bosnian green cards on their insurance or not. But Bosnia changed. We've gone from the green, lush, mountainous region of Montenegro, and actually you can see that strong divide there. Green, green, green on this side of the border, mountains on the other, stark mountains on the other, and it literally translated visually into that same vast distinction between one side of the border and the other. It was almost I'm trying to think where it reminded me. It reminded me a bit of Iceland in its stark, vast emptiness, but a slightly more desert, obviously a bit drier, more desert, more arid. And empty, nothing in there. We stopped for food just over the border, got some great food. I can't even remember what we were spending. I think we were spending euros in most parts, apart from Bulgaria and maybe Serbia. So euros counted for a lot of it. And we ended up to Mostar. Where's it gone? Mostar. So we had good riding. Mostar there. Which the Bosnia-Serbia War of the 90s, if anybody's seen the bridge that was destroyed because on one side there was one side of the war, and on the other side was the other side, the other side, and they literally fought across the river, taking pot shots and blowing up things and firing cannons for however long. So both either side destroyed the other side's buildings on the other side of the water. It was absolutely crazy, and I can't remember enough of the detail now to explain what it was about. People with better knowledge of history will know that, but incredible to see such recent history. 20 odd years ago, and it was all happening. That bridge where we all stood, that's been rebuilt because it was blown up by one of the sides. It was because it's a stunning arched bridge. And it's been rebuilt, so it's a reimagination of what it was. But a very touristy town, lots of people there, but you could sense that there's a history there. There's a real history. Again, a place you could spend many days just exploring and finding a bit more out. There's a McDonald's there and everything, so it's got all the nods of modernity, but such recent violent history as well, which is kind of an odd duality of a place like that. We just stayed on a campsite a little bit south of there by the river. If you just put in Google, if you Google camping Mostar, it'll come up with something. There's a few good options there, or cheap motels people found for sort of $20-30. So there's some good options there. And then we just took the road out of Bosnia. There's lots of lakes and things up here which could be worth doing in Bosnia and in Croatia further up. But again, you've got to make your route here, and we headed for the coast, dropped down just north of Split, and then we headed down here. And to be honest, I mean, we really looked out with Croatia. We were amazed by it. We obviously had good weather because it was August, so blazing hot, great roads, great views of the ocean. And then if you had more time, you could do all these island hopping from Zadar, and you could go out and ride along these. And I did look at it, but time was against us. But if you had a bit more time, you could do all this, jump out to here, jump out there. You could even jump across there, miss that. So many options, really. But we headed up to Zadar. We stayed on a campsite just along the road. There's loads of campsites along this road that you just have to drop in and camp. And they've all got swimming, ocean swimming. They're all by the sea. So yeah, a great place to travel, either on a motorcycle or a car or with a family or anything, because there's plentiful supply of campsites. It's all clean. Croatia is actually very clean. Bosnia, a little bit littered, obviously. I guess they've got plenty to mop up with from the war, but Croatia was spotlessly clean, well ordered. It felt a sophisticated place, I guess, but not crazy prices. So a very good, safe and easy place to travel for a family or a couple, maybe a rider and pillion. And we ended up into Zadar. So that was that first week. So I've talked 27 minutes already, which I know is a long time, but yeah, so that was that. And actually, I'm going to stop there. Because it's going to take me a while to drop some photos in. And then tomorrow I will do the second part, which was the run back from Croatia. Which the beauty of being able to take it slow is that it allowed us to do so many mountain passes, Dolomites, Alps, and then Switzerland, Furka, Grimsel Pass, and all that sort of stuff. So I'll talk about that tomorrow. But you do look at the options. If you stood there and you said, which way shall I go? Where do you go? I mean, you've got so much riding there. Oh, let's hope these restrictions lift and we can all get bloody on our bikes and get off again. All right, I'm going to stop now and get that section uploaded, put some pictures in, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, all being well. Cheers, bye.